Hey guys, this is Drew with Moto Adventurer. I've been talking so much about my first gear kit over the past few months and basically the flexibility that I've had through the winter, spring, and fall that I thought it would probably be fair to go ahead and do a review. So I'm going to start with the first gear Rainier TPG jacket, and then I'll do a follow-up episode on the TPG Escape pants. So the Rainier jacket is I would consider this an all-season jacket. So this has the waterproof in quotations outer textile layer, and then on the inside they have the thermal inserts that I'll get into some more. You can see on the outside that these are those again, like waterproof-esque zippers that for the most part I've experienced pretty much 95% waterproof with the vast majority of the zippers that are on here. The jacket retails for about $400. I bought it used off a buddy of mine, so I can't say, like, has it changed a whole lot over time, because it's been pretty reliable for me thus far. So I imagine new, you're pretty much 100% dry, at least for the first few months that you have it. And then ultimately, the only leaking that I've experienced in the time I've had it has been these zippers just on the inner arm. So that's actually not so bad because I'm dry from the elbows down. Beyond waterproofness of the jacket, there is an absolute pile of storage, as you can see. So you have the front pockets here that I actually use quite a bit. I mean, I think I have and I've got my setup for my heated gear actually in the pocket right now, and that's awesome because it actually feeds through on the bottom side. I don't usually use the chest pockets a whole lot, but similar to these front pockets, they have the flip down dry pocket for each. On the long trips, I have put my wallet and my cell phone in these pockets, if not on the inner cell phone pocket, to make sure they stay dry. But then you have the same effect up on the chest, and basically what I would call a map pocket if you have something small that you need to pull out. And then on the front left arm, I'm actually surprised by this. I haven't used it a whole lot, but you got the almost like the fifth pocket on your jeans. If like occasionally I'll put an air pressure gauge or something like that in there. And then on the back, you have your almost like marsupial pouch. So you have another dry pocket on the back side. So you've got enough room in the back here almost to put an 8.5 and 11 sheet of paper. I've stuck a pad of paper back there before. I've picked up my Taco Bell with the pouch in the back, so it's convenient when you're really in a jam. So moving on from storage, I think the overall look, not everybody's into like the coyote desert tan, but as an army guy, it's about the closest thing I can get to camouflage, so that worked out for me just fine. I think in some of the newer models, they might have some like high vis and gray and red stuff thrown in there, but obviously, like I said, I picked it up used, so it wasn't necessarily a choice for me. I do like the subtle hints of reflectivity. You can't really see on the camera, but what's nice on the shoulders and elbows and even the long stripes along the back, each one of these little dots that you see is actually reflective, so that shows up really well in the headlights. So moving on from aesthetics, I want to talk more about ventilation. So like I said, one of the few places that the jacket leaks is on the wrist, but what's actually great is once you open up these wrist vents, air starts to work its way up the arm really well. So and usually that's the part that I complain about the most, is I have my arms nice and tight so that I have my armor on the elbow where it belongs, but then I feel like I'm sweltering because I got it strapped down tight, and you feel yourself sweating. So you've also got the like the armpit vents over here, and unlike pretty much all the other zippers that are on here, these zippers are not what I would consider waterproof, but I'm really impressed that even with these shut and not having the more waterproof gutters that are on there, they do a really good job of keeping the water out, just based on the position and the way that they have that fold put in there. So in the end, I usually only get a little bit damp, but the front does a pretty decent job of venting. It's obviously not near as direct as it would be as if it was in the chest, like a lot of the other newer jackets. And then on the back, the exhaust vents do have that waterproof seal that's on it, and thus far I've stayed dry. And these do a pretty good job of getting air moving through the jacket. But at the end of the day, the wrist vents alone just feel great, whereas I don't feel as much air moving through the side vents And there's no doubt that it actually helps, but when you've taken the thermal out, unless it's 90 degrees outside, the overall jacket just breathes well anyway. So if you've been following the blog for a while, you've probably heard me talk about the First Gear kit, and I've worn this from basically 24 degrees up to easily 85 degrees in different configurations depending on the weather. Obviously it's warmest with the thermals out. Ventilation does pretty good, and then usually about 55 or below I start to put the thermals back in, and then normally as long as it's above freezing, is basically all I really need is a long sleeve t-shirt. For the short trip to the work in the morning, honestly, that's all I need too. I can see maybe for the longer trips you might want to actually get you know, an electric liner to put inside, but as long as it's above freezing, there's really no need for that. So you can see the rain gutter that I was talking about earlier. This does a fantastic job of keeping the rain out, so I don't have any issues here in the front. And then the cell phone pocket that I use quite a bit. So on the inside of the jacket, First Gear has provided this, they give you this really awesome liner. And the liner's got these deep pockets on the front end, another cell phone pocket if you want to use that, although these days I don't think many people's phones really fit in that anymore. And then one of the features I actually really like is I actually put a spot, so I attach my jacket to my pants. There's actually a hole in the liner that opens up so that you can push that through. You don't have all your material bunched up underneath you. So once you take the liner out, so it zips on both sides, so it's not just one zipper that goes around. And then one of these quick buttons on the back, and then they have the same that actually goes in the sleeves, which I'm kind of hit and miss. Some days I like to have those buttoned, and then other days I don't feel like fussing with them because I've taken the liner in and out so many times. You know, those spring and fall days where it always crosses that borderline between how much gear you need. And so as you can see, like I said before, I've got my heated gear hooked up in here. So once you pull this liner out, you can see the stock foam back pad. I guess I decided I had both of them hooked up in here. So I lost that fight with that button there. So pull the liner out. I probably have this one on here too. Nope. So the liner looks like a lot of the new fleece jackets. They have the same cell phone pocket on the front, which this is actually not bad. If you're just out running about and you want to leave your jacket put up, this is something nice in the spring and fall when it's not really warm or too cold outside. And then they have the same waterproof vents on here. Now I've never had a situation where I wanted the liner in and had the vents open, but I suppose folks found those conditions, they're there. And you can see the big D3O marker on here. I'm a huge fan of the D3O armor. The back pad in here is just a piece of foam, but the standard D3 armor is in the elbows and in the shoulders. If folks haven't seen the D3O before, you should go check that out, especially if you can find a replacement for your current jacket. It's absolutely phenomenal. Look up D3O on the web, as it's non-Newtonian, and I don't want to get into a bunch of science stuff, but basically on impact the armor stiffens up and protects you, but it's soft and flexible, so it's extremely comfortable when you're just out touring. So I got the shoulder armor put back in there, and I actually got to go ahead and put the liner back in, but I wanted to talk about that. This is an older model that I bought off a buddy of mine, and I'm actually not entirely sure if the new model actually has the liner that I like so much. If anybody knows, go ahead and leave comments below. I'd appreciate it so we can confirm that. I mean, ultimately this review is not only just, hey, I like First Gear and it works for me, you should try it out, but if First Gear is not making one with a liner, they definitely should. And if you're looking for something that's for season, I just can't imagine not having something that has that extra thermal layer in there to really help stretch into the coldest months, and then still have an outer light material that's waterproof, but at the same time breathable enough so that you can finally bleed some heat off. The other thing I wanted to talk about the liner is, I mean, this jacket is really comfortable with the liner out. I'm about 5'10", about 185. This is a size large, And with the liner out, with the mesh on the inside, it's extremely comfortable. I admit that the D3O armor, some of these pockets, especially with the Velcro on them and the elbow, can be a little aggravating at first. But once you get settled into your ride, it doesn't bother you anymore. But with the liner in, obviously none of the armor or Velcro or anything hurts at all because it's just like fleece. I don't know what material it is, but it's fantastic. But I do find that as you've got the arms ratcheted down, that it gets a little tighter in the elbows and whatnot. So I have a hard time kind of reaching up to my helmet a little bit in the wintertime when I'm bundled up with a long sleeve shirt plus the liner in. So that's something to take into consideration. But overall, the jacket fits, I wouldn't go as far as to say European, but it fits better than some of the domestic stuff that I've done that really bunches up big time in the waist or in the gut. So when I'm sitting down on the bike, I feel like I have all this material here. So I don't experience that. And we even have the side adjustments on the first gear jacket that helps curb that. I guess one of the last couple things I want to cover is talk about waterproofness. This also has the integrated hood that I'm not going to pull out all the way because it's a pain in the butt, like all of them, to put it back in there. So the integrated hood is, well, actually, we'll pull it out. It's a pretty big lifesaver because when it actually rains, obviously that was something that I learned the hard way last year at the drag, and I didn't realize that the hood is one of the biggest keys to staying dry. But they have the microfiber piece on the top, so you have that waterproof material on the back, about halfway up your neck, and then on top you have that microfiber, so you don't feel like you're sweltering in a waterproof hood like you would if you were wearing a rain jacket. So I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. The downside of that has been that when you have that bunched up on the collar in the wintertime, then I have the liner here, I have the collar here, and then I might have, I've got my neck gaiter laying over here, so I've got all that material, so it's kind of tough to look up on the bike. So I will say that you have to make sure it's nice and settled the way you want it, or it gets a little bit uncomfortable. Headed to work in the morning, my neck gets a little bit tired. So all in all, I can't say enough about the jacket. For the most part, I definitely wear it the vast majority of the year until it gets to be about 75 and up every day, at which point I finally switch to the mesh. But I can't beat the flexibility that I have in the jacket. Now, if you're shopping new, I totally recognize it's pricey, and then when you look at that compared to what the pants are to match, then you start getting into arrow stitch territory, so it's really a question of what you want to do. But I caught the pants on closeout, so you can catch that. You can catch them on clearance somewhere, and then you can really get a deal, and it's totally worth it. So in closing, like I said, this is the older model of the first gear Rainier jacket. Retails about $400. Definitely a four-season jacket with all the flexibility that's in it. To me, the biggest highlights are, if you're somebody who likes to carry a lot of stuff, there's a ton of storage. For me, the parts that I like the most is that D3O armor is just incredible. And then the overall, just the flexibility and comfort to this jacket, that I can wear it all year long. And except for the absolute hottest days sitting at the stoplight, I don't worry about it. I wouldn't think twice about getting on the bike in July and riding to Florida all day in just this jacket on the freeway, because I knew I would stay cool enough as long as the bike is moving.